By the time I finally found Weston State Mental Hospital to begin my clinical rotation, it was already dusk. And what greeted me at the end of a long driveway was an incredibly impressive, half-mile long Civil War era building with a tower that was looming up into the night sky, paint peeling, a clock that obviously hadn't worked for decades, and oh yes, bats. I probably shouldn't have watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or Halloween before taking on this call. But I had, and it was too late. For a brief moment, I thought about turning around and going home, but I really needed to finish this program. And so I found a parking spot and made my way inside the front door. Just inside the door to the left was a huge plate glass window with wire mesh embedded in it. Behind it was a pleasant enough looking woman intently reading her book. I stood there for a few moments, but she didn't seem to acknowledge me, and so finally I tapped on the glass. I thought she smiled at first, but this is what came out of her mouth. What you want? I'm one of the student chaplains. I need to find a room for the stay. Oh, you're up on the second floor. You're the first one here. It's 209. And with that, she turned around and reached for a key and handed it to me under the glass. You'll have to take the elevator. It's down the hall on the right. And with that, she literally disappeared. I went out to the car and grabbed my steamer trunk that had all my clothes in it for the duration, dragged it up the front steps and down the hallway to the elevator. I pushed the button. Nothing happened. I pushed it again. Nothing happened. I wasn't sure I wanted to go back and talk to the secretary, but just about that point, an older man in overalls came down the hallway and said, Sonny, that damn thing don't work half time. There should be a sign on it, though. And with that, he started rummaging around, and sure enough, he found it. It had slid on the floor and was halfway down the hallway. He brought it back and stuck it on the door. He said, we're going to have to take steps. That thing looks awful heavy. Want some help? I said, I'll take any help I can get. And with that, he reached down, grabbed one handle, I grabbed the other, and we hiked it up the stairs to the second floor. He helped me find my apartment, and we got the trunk inside. I was just about ready to say goodbye when he said, you got any more stuff out in that car that needs to come in here? So I got a few things, but I can handle it. I'm okay. Oh, hell, Sonny, I don't got nothing else to do tonight. Let's go down and get it. With that, we unloaded the car in no time flat. At the end of the last load, I remembered the advice my dad had given me years before. He said, whenever you start a new job or you go to a new office, there are two people you want to make sure you get to know and always keep on your good side: the secretary and the janitor. Well, I wasn't real sure about the secretary downstairs, at least, but this janitor sure as heck seems like a nice guy, and he could come in very helpful, I was sure. And so I reached out my hand and I said, thank you for all your help. My name's Jake Jacobson. I'm one of the student chaplains. He got a big grin on his face. He said, Sonny, so good to meet you. I hope you have a good time here. He said, my name's Jesus Christ. And with that, he let go of my hand and walked down the hallway. At the end of the hallway, he knocked on the door. It opened, He went in, and it closed with that distinctive click. I probably stood there with my mouth hanging wide open for 5 minutes, trying to figure out what had just happened to me. What did I just encounter? Or what had just encountered me? It was the beginning of a great learning that continued with me throughout the program. And that was the line between sanity and insanity is paper thin. And to tell you the truth, the only thing that separated me from those I called residents was that I had a key that got me out the door at the end of the day. That experience also began a theological query that continued through the summer. And that was, could that have been Jesus Christ? He certainly acted in a manner that would belay Jesus. What if the incarnation wasn't a one-time flash in the pan, but that God continues to take on human flesh in the most unlikely of guises? Well, my query was bolstered over the course of the summer because I met at least 7 or 8 other Jesus Christs in my rounds, as well as General Grant and General Lee. They were roommates. That was an interesting combination. But what if God did indeed dwell in these crazy people? Over the course of the summer, I had enough experiences to really ratchet up that question. And it reminded me that over the years, there have been those who, after an encounter, I recognized that I had been in the presence of the holy, the sacred. And there have been many, many, many more of those encounters in the years since. In fact, one day I was sharing one with my spiritual director, and she smiled. And she said, Henri Nouwen has something to say about that in one of his books. He says, when we have those encounters, it is the Christ in us that sees the Christ in the other. Have you had one of those encounters? Have you encountered Christ lately in the face of a neighbor, a friend, a coworker, a fellow student, a stranger? Where have you seen Jesus in the last 24 hours? And when you saw him, did it change how you behaved? The words you used? Did it change the tenor of the conversation? What if we began each day expecting to see Jesus? What a difference that might make in how we treat one another. What if we began to look at those we disagree with? Those we would be quick to condemn? Those we stereotype? Those who get the benefit of our rants? What if we began to look at them through the eyes of the Jesus in us? Could we begin to recognize the Christ in them? Interesting question. And if we did, would it change how we behave? I invite you today to look for Jesus. And you may be very surprised where he shows up. Just as others may be surprised when they look at you and see the face of Christ.